Keep missing the start of that segment there. Okay, I heard the alert for the chat, but I didn't see where it went. Oh, there it is. Hang on a second. Right. If I'm in Satisfactory, I don't see the chat. Gotta check. Am I on Vulcan? Because I know that interferes with stuff. I think that chat message will stay open for about 2 minutes. Auto highs, things. I swear I remember it working last time. But yeah. So I think the only thing that the transparent chat, Twitch chat thing is going to be useful for is letting me know that there's a chat message. And looking at Twitch. But I heard that, I just didn't see it. And I just noticed I've been like left on the thing. So you're saying it's like it's the video's gone too silent. It should be coming through just like set to low. I'm gonna, yeah, actually pop open the stream preview. Let's see how it sounds myself. Okay, obviously that needs a easy up. Go.
So GI is global elimination.
Okay, was that... I could hear that like fine for me. How was it for you? So yeah, it wasn't so much that like Snut was muted, it was just like Snut was quiet. Anyway, let's get this. Yeah, I'll have this like. I should have switched scenes. I'll keep it open for a bit just to get the end of the recap sorted.
To like technologies, or I'd say technologies within Unreal Engine that they made specific reasons actually, and that's to unveil, not just say like update. For a couple of reasons actually, and that's the two next topics that we're going to be talking about, and that's Nanite and Lumen. For those who don't know, Nanite and Lumen are two like technologies, or I'd say technologies within Unreal Engine that they made specifically for Unreal Engine. That one handles global elimination. I'm gonna say GI from now on because saying global elimination over and over again is really tricky. So GI is global elimination, and the Nanite is like a it's a what's it called? I'm gonna try and use the proper term, but it's essentially like a clustered way of calculating when you're looking at a model in 3D, which polygons are actually visible per pixel. Calculate the proper term. The Nanite, so Jane Globally from G elimination, made, I'd say these, or I'd say technologies, like technologies or Lumen. For the Night and Lumen that we're going to be talking two next couple of reasons actually. For a couple of reasons actually, and that's two next topics that we're going to be talking about, and that's Nanite and Lumen. For those who don't know, Nanite and Lumen are for those Nanite and Lumen, and that's Nanite and Lumen. Get not just for a couple of reasons. Unreal, and not just like we wanted to do a proper Unreal Engine 5. The reason why.
I'll just make that the start of the Lumen Nanite segment is going to be clear. Well, yeah, that's the thing. It's like, Yeah, I'm wondering, can I set separate sound settings per scene? Because if I'm on, like minimized, then we want it down there. What do you mean it's double mod? Is there an echo or what? What's going on there? Yeah, Twitch open twice. Well, either you might have had Twitch open twice, or you might have had or like OBS might have been picking up the Twitch when I was playing it back. But that would mean you'd have massive delay. Okay, cool. My concentration's gone a bit wonky at the moment, so I think, well, rather than doing the usual thing of ending the stream early, is I'm just gonna like slap up a sign. Or I would slap up a sign. I can't slap up a sign. Here we go. Where's the text? Yeah. So I'm just gonna be right back. Yeah, got yourself a couple of drinks and a snack. Oh, where was I? Mic working? Yep, the mic's working. Well, it's doing something. Let's monitor it just in case it went wonky when I put the hardware switch on. Yeah, that's fine. I think you get more shit for that, don't I? Oop, nearly. I think I brought back more quartz than I needed last time I went over. So, yeah, we'll find that out.
It was because we wanted to get, like, we wanted to do a proper Unreal and not just unveil and not just say, like, update. For a couple of reasons, actually, and that's two next topics that we're going to be talking about, and that's Nanite and Lumen. For those who don't know, Nanite and Lumen are two, like, technologies, or yeah, I'd say technologies, within Unreal Engine that they made specifically for Unreal Engine. That one handles global illumination. I'm gonna say GI from now on because saying global illumination over and over again is really tricky. So GI is global illumination, and the Nanite is like a it's a what's the called? I'm gonna try and use the proper term, but it's essentially like a clustered way of calculating when you're looking at a model in 3D, which polygons are actually visible per pixel. Because you can end up in a situation where if you have a model and you move it way back and the whole entirety of the model fits within 1 pixel, the shader is still gonna like send all that data to the GPU, and it's still gonna do like all the like calculations of how to render, and then it's gonna find out that like all that rendering is happening on 1 pixel, and then it just decides like here's the color of that pixel. Like that's essentially what happens on the GPU, right? The GPU is essentially just taking like data from what's going on CPU, and then it's calculated like per pixel, like what color should the pixel have based on what's being rendered on screen at the moment. And Nanite essentially boils models down so that it only essentially, this is dumbed down because there's a lot of techniques into it, but essentially it boils down to like it figuring out like what parts of a model are being rendered at the moment, and then that sends it to the GPU. There's a couple of limitations with that. One is that you lose a little bit of artistic like control, because a lot of times you like artists use like normal maps and like all those kind of buffers that come in with the regular old system of rendering, and you can sort of like bake in more information and then like kind of cheat the system a little bit. That is not possible anymore, so you have to go with like the rendering pipeline that is designed for Lumen, or sorry, designed for Nanite. So because of that, we decided to, well, not because of that, but that's one aspect of it. And for us, we're mainly going to use Nanite on the rocks that we have in our game, because the cliffs and the rocks are already pretty high, like density-wise, polygon-wise. I remember one early meeting with Epic where they were critiquing us for having way too high fidelity like models for the cliffs and the rocks in our game. They told us that like the only reason why you'd have this much fidelity for a cliff should be if you're making like a rock climbing game or something like that. And that stuck with me really.
Yeah, I remember them talking about that.
So that is like really useful for us.
There was an additional thing when they talked about that previously of like apparently like the cliffs having a non-uniform scaling, which caused some wonkiness, if I remember correctly.
To use Nanite for that. However, a lot of people have asked or talked about the fact that you can also use Nanite on foliage, and that's something that's somewhat new in Unreal Engine. That wasn't part of like the initial release of Unreal Engine 5, but they've since added it because Nanite has the issue that a lot of times you can only use it for static meshes, which is meshes that can't move. Now, technically, foliage don't move, but there's a bunch of like shader magic happening where like you have leaves swaying and like grass moving and stuff like that. So originally, it wasn't really possible to use nanite for that kind of magic, but now Epic has support for that, so it is technically possible to make use nanite for foliage.
What direction
However,
is
we
this
will
moving?
probably not do
That
that
way, is that going
for a couple
down?
of reasons. One is that we would need to we have so much foliage in our game that we can't just like
That one's
press
going
one button
up.
and convert it all to nanite. We would sort of need to like go in hand fix a bunch of stuff, and it would just be too much work at this point of development. If we were to start from scratch and have the knowledge that we have now and be like, we're gonna make Satisfactory, we're gonna use Unreal Engine 5, we probably would have used nanite for foliage. But as things are right now, it is probably not doable. The same question also comes to machines and stuff like that, using nanite for that. I think that's something we want to do. It's the same kind of deal. There's a lot of resource that needs to be spent on sort of converting our models to be able to utilize nanite, but that is more likely than converting our foliage to nanite. So, which is a little bit of a bummer because we'll talk about it in a bit, but it's a little bit of a bummer because the biggest gain
Pretty
of using
confident that's
nanite
the
is
way I
really
would
when you're
see it.
rendering from a distance. So, and you guys will see that in a second actually, because I've got a bunch of footage prepared for today where we will showcase some of this stuff. Yeah, so like distance, and Jay's talked about this in the video where like if you're rendering from far away, we can have higher density models for stuff further back. So like you could see the entirety of the world potentially in the future instead of like all those boxes and stuff like that. So that's nanite. Lumen is another thing, and Lumen is, we're kind of supporting Lumen. We will have the option for you to be able to turn on Lumen.
Let's just tweak that a little bit.
Yeah, we will have the option for you. So that's the entirety of nanite. Lumen is another thing. Nanite. Lumen. Nanite. 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 Lumen is another thing, and Lumen is, we're kind of supporting Lumen.
Not sure how long
we
that'll
will
be, so I'll
have
just
the option for you
leave it black
to
for
be
now.
able to turn on Lumen. Yeah, we'll talk about that too in a second. So I kind of forgot about this step, but I kind of want to go back a little bit and talk about rendering in general too. I have a little segment prepared here actually for that. So kind of forgot about this. So talk about that too in a second. So I kind of forgot about this. We'll talk about that too in a second. Yeah, we'll talk about that too in a second. In a second. So so I kind of forgot about this step, but I kind of want to go back a little bit and talk about rendering in general too. I have a little segment prepared here actually for that. So I saw a lot of comments from people saying that like the game is going to look so much better now that it's on Unreal Engine 5, and like that's one of the reasons why we moved. So the game will not drastically change in terms of what it looks like because we're on Unreal Engine 5. Just want to point that out, even with Lumen in a lot of cases. And I'm going to sort of see, I'm kind of curious actually, if people will be able to even spot the difference between what the game looks like now and what the game will look like in update 8. So I have prepared a little quiz, sort of, not a quiz, but like a little game show here. So I've got, I have set up 5 shots, 5 different locations in the world, and I'm going to be showing you footage from update 7, and I'm going to show you footage from today in update 8. but you're not gonna know which one is which. So just want to point that out. Even with Lumen, in a lot of not drastic, like that's one of. Just want to point that out. Even with Lumen, and is actually, if people will be able to even spot, I'm going to sort of see. Just want to point that out. Even with Lumen, and between.
I feel like this might be two separate segments here, so I'm like just trying to figure out whether it's like rendering in general, like blah, or if I just make this the entire thing. Just make it the rendering. Like, just skip ahead. Yeah, it is that second. So if we make that rendering phase, and we go back in intro segment.
What the game looks like now and what the game will look like in update 8. So I have prepared a little quiz, sort of, not a quiz, but like a little game show here. So I've got, I have set up 5 shots, 5 different locations in the world, and I'm going to be showing you footage from update 7, and I'm going to show you footage from today in update 8. But you're not going to know which one is which. So essentially what we're gonna do is we're just gonna spam in chat which one you think is which one. So there's gonna be 2 options. There's gonna be A and B. And sometimes A is update 7, sometimes A is update 8, vice versa. So you never know. And then we'll have a reveal. Don't do it yet. We haven't seen the footage yet, okay? Calm down. So hopefully Mike should work in the scene. And let's dive into spot number 1. All right, here we go. So here's one spot. Here's A. Here's the game at this point. And then for comparison, we have spot B. All right. It's gonna loop again. So which one do you think is which? Do you think, which one is update 8? Is B A or B update 8? Ooh, a lot of B's here. Let's see. We'll go back to A here. Ah, interesting. Oh, we're going back and forth. I think I've seen more B's than A's, though. Or maybe not? It's a little bit divided.
I feel like B is up there.
I feel like people are mostly voting B, though. All right, we'll see in 5, 4. Here comes a big reveal. All right, so A was update 7, and B was update 8 in this example. So there you see the difference. Some of this stuff is like, I'm gonna pause here. Whoops. Let's go back to the video. Or not. There we go. So I'm just gonna pause over here. So some of this stuff though is that we've updated this biome a little bit. I believe. So like some stuff may moved around, possibly. We'll see. So that was the first one. How did you all do? I feel like most people managed to see it though. So let's jump into the next one. Here we go. Here's another one. Here's option like, A behind door number stuff. A. This is what it looks like. And then here's behind door number 2. So which one do you think is update 8?
I'm
A or
not
B?
sure.
A lot of A's. I feel like when the thing is on the screen, I get more of one of them. But I feel like this is more... People are more leaning into A here.
Yeah, I would agree.
Very interesting.
Like
Very interesting.
The fog depth seems to be better.
Yes, I guess we'll have to find out in 5 seconds. Here we go. Oh my god. Which one was it? A was update 8, so y'all got that one too. Hell yeah. You can kind of tell from... Let's see here. In this example, the fog is a bit more announced in this one because of, I guess, something rendering wise, right? Because something is different in the rendering pipeline. I saw a lot of people mention the smoke. It's possible that the smoke has been updated. The VFX, that is. I don't know if that actually is changed, but yeah, look at that. Just counted the voxels. All right, let's jump straight into the third option here, and I think this is you're all gonna get this one. So, option 1, which is 8. Could this be update 8, or could this be update 7? Well, I don't know. Oh, do you guys know? And here's option B. This one should be, yeah, look at that. A lot of B's. Y'all are catching on real quick here. Either you guys play the game too much, or you're just really good guessers.
Yeah, I'm not really at all familiar with like the Dune Desert, so I honestly couldn't say.
Which kind of gave that one away. With the fact that I'm saying that. The waterfalls, I don't know if the waterfalls have changed actually. But yeah, let's see what it is. Could it be A or B? So update 7 is A and update 8 is B. So this is a really good example actually of how Nanite like drastically improves the clips. So if you look here in the far distance on the cliffs, there's a lot more detail in update 8 than is in update 7, and that is because we get that like that advantage of using Nanite on cliffs. So instead of using the loaded version of the cliffs, we can use like the actual model. So yeah, pretty dope. All right, spot number 4. Here we go. Here we are, Northern Forests. And here's option A. And then in a few seconds, we have option B. Ooh, this was a little bit more split actually. Oh, a lot of split here. Okay, this one wasn't as obvious. B, poison looks more volumetric. I don't know if that has changed too much. Which is interesting actually. Yeah, so
I'm not sure. It's like I know like the lighting is different on B.
This might surprise you, chat, because A is actually updated in this instance. And this one is a little bit tricky because it actually looks like a downgrade in this. Yeah, a little bit bamboozled. Somebody mentioned there was better detail in the gas. I don't think it actually has changed between like update 8 and 7. But so the thing here, this is a little bit of a bamboozle, because in update 8, we've changed the, since we're moving the system, the world partitioning system, we are like loading in assets in a different way. So, and here we haven't fully set that up. Sometimes, in certain cases, it might not load in enough, sort of. So in this case, you don't see the entirety of the Northern Forest in the background there. You see like there's a little hole there, the gap. Whereas here it's much more detailed. So here in update 8, in this particular spot, we're a little bit more like we're not loading in as much as we are in update 7. But that is also, we'll talk more about that, but that is actually one of the drawbacks of how it is in Unreal Engine 4, the fact that we have to load in entirety of tiles, whereas now we actually do have the option to sort of load in half and half. So yeah. And then lastly, we have another Northern Forest spot. So here is option A, and then we have option B over here.
Yeah, I'm generally not clear on stuff if it has more fog.
People going B. So with the knowledge, potentially, yeah, of what I told you just a second ago, it might be quite obvious. Yeah, it's true. Like watching this on stream as well, you don't get the full like quality experience, if you will. But it is what it is. So what could it be, Chad? Which one was it? I feel like most people, yeah, it's update 8. Is option A is update 8, and B is update 7. Tricky, tricky. Yeah, yeah. It's not as obvious sometimes. So here's like actually the opposite. So here it actually does load in. In update 8, it loads better in this particular spot than what we're in originally. And that kind of stuff is stuff that we need to tweak. Yeah, baited. Actually, I wonder if I fucked up. I wonder if this is true, actually. I need to double check this. Yeah, I'm not sure if this is true, actually, now that I think about it. I wanna verify this. This note been fucked up for sure. I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case. Let's see here. Let me open up the thing. But I think like the main point is I think most of you guys noticed because you're all die-hard Satisfactory players. When I started playing Update 8, I didn't really notice
things would
that
look a little
big
bit
of a
better
difference.
because of the way I play being
But when
up
you
here
compare
a lot.
them side by side, it's quite obvious.
So like all of that should look better in no, rather than, you know, looking like arse.
Yeah, I did fuck up. It's supposed to be the other way around. So we were not bamboozled. It was actually... I bamboozled myself too. I was like, wait, was it not that in? But yeah, ignore that last one. Yeah, so W for the chat. So it was only really the second one, I think, or the third one that was kind of difficult to notice. But I think if anything, speaking of nanite, and that's kind of wanted to get to this point really, was that, not this one, was the fact that cliffs now look way better at a distance. So that's like one of the biggest gains when using nanite for a cliff compared to the regular way of loading them, etc., etc. So yeah, I actually have more stuff on this though. Also, just want to mention that like the cliffs won't be like higher, like we won't improve the fidelity of the cliffs. Like they'll be the same quality as they are in the right now in the game. It's just that the loading is the major thing where it changes. So when rock climbing, that's a good question. Billboarding it, we were never billboarding the cliffs. We billboard the trees and like the foliage, and that will still be the case. Because, yeah, that's how it works. Let's see here. So Lumen, Jace mentioned Lumen. So Lumen is like Epic's GI system made. Lumen is taking a lot of different GI like implementation is so Lumen, let's see here.
It's out of this segment sorted. I just left it all on intro.
So hopefully the game, here's, all right, here we go. So, and let's dive into spot number 1. All right, and let's, like, should work in the scene. So Lumen, Jace mentioned Lumen. So Lumen is like Epic's GI system they made. Lumen is taking a lot of different GI like implementations and sort of baking them together. So I believe it's 3 different ray tracing techniques that are combined in Lumen, which makes it really powerful because it's really efficient. The one thing though is that Lumen is a software-based GI technique. So Lumen runs on your CPU, and it's more proficient running it apparently on the CPU than the GPU, which is a bummer because Satisfactory is very CPU intense as it is. So adding Lumen on top of that is kind of annoying. But that's not really the main reason why we're not going to use it as like being the default supported one. So we're not going to like have the game be designed for Lumen in mind because we've already sort of shaded the game with the current shading model that we have. And also the fact that Lumen is a software-based renderer, which makes it very taxing. And we're going to talk a little bit also as to like what other issues come with Lumen, because it's not all peaches, even if you have a good enough computer to handle it. But yeah, essentially, Lumen calculates like how light bounces around. It makes for a lot more like quote-unquote realistic shading technique. And I also have prepared a couple of like example shots. And just want to preface again that we're not going to by default support Lumen, and we're probably not going to spend, I don't know if we're going to spend any time, but probably not too much time on like making sure the game works with Lumen in mind. But it is going to be there as an option in the options menu. It's going to be there as a setting for like global illumination. You can turn it on if you want to. That's totally up to you. And we're going to check out what it actually looks like. So here is the default shading module. I think this is the most obvious one, I would say. So it's mostly like obvious in the shadows when you turn it on. Here's another one during dusk. This is the one that's a little bit trickier to see. For like global illumination, you can turn it on if you want to. That's totally up to you. And we're gonna check out what it actually up to you. And we're gonna check out what it actually looks like. So here is the default shading module. I think this is the most obvious one, I would say. So it's mostly like,
I think I can put the end of the rendering phase to a segment to under the diagram. The question.
example shots. And just want to preface again, a lot more have a game be to do, which is a bummer because Satisfactory is very CPU intense as it is. So adding Lumen on top of that is kind of annoying. But that's not really the main reason why we're not going to use it as like being the default supported one. So we're not going to like have the game be designed for Lumen in mind because we've already sort of shaded the game with the current shading model that we have. And also the fact that Lumen is a software-based renderer, which makes it very taxing. And we're going to talk a little bit also as to like what other issues come with Lumen, because it's not all peaches, even if you have a good enough computer to handle it. But yeah, essentially, Lumen calculates like how light bounces around. It makes for a lot more like quote-unquote realistic shading technique. And I also have prepared a couple of like technique. and technique. And I also have prepared a couple of like
We're gonna like retreat a little bit. Make this entire segment lumen on off. Then I can make this the intro rather than a question, because it bleeds in too smoothly into the next segment. I feel like it would be information lost if that were like, if that was uploaded as a separate bit. It would feel like there was information lost, so I wouldn't want to, you know, do that. Ordered. Not going. Let's get that to sequence 13.
And we're gonna check out what it actually looks like. So here is the default shading module. I think this is the most obvious one, I would say. So it's mostly like obvious in the shadows when you turn it on.
I think I can't spell
There's another
comparison.
one during dusk. This is the one that's a little bit trickier to see, but you can see some of the detail kind
No,
of around.
that seems about.
Some of the shadows look a bit more crisp. Here's one in the night, at the night, and this one is a little bit trickier to see. The only way I really spot this one is the water. Here's another one. It's the same photo. Like essentially, what it does is makes everything look more evenly lit, essentially. And here's some of the footage from the video with the most drastic change, I would say, with factories. Photoshop. It's really cool though. It makes the game look better in a lot of cases. But there's one major problem with it in the way that things are right now. And I'm just gonna jump straight to that. So I have another video here demonstrating that. So here's my little home I've made myself. This is where I live. The factory I made. It's running purely on packaged liquid biofuel, best fuel source. So this is with lumen off, right? This is the default rendering method that we have in the game. It looks like it's a little home. Just look at it.
Let's
running around.
go
here,
downstairs and check
right.
which
So
the back of the
now
front
that we
belt
have
goes
that
into the
freshly
middle.
made, here's lumen on, so you can tell that, like, I'm gonna pause here real
Here we
quick.
go.
So like if you check the building, you can see that with lumen on, it's like a little
This
bit more
looks
evenly lit,
consistent.
right? It looks a bit more
The middle one goes to the
evenly lit, essentially. And that's all fine, right? It's more orange. Yes, it's like, because it's like bouncing around light on itself. But the problem is when I walk in, this is
back
now
on
an interior
to the middle.
when it's closed off from the environment. So the only light sources here really are from the benches and like the MAM. So if I remove them, it goes completely dark. Like this is what it looks like inside a factory. And this could be cool if this is the look you're going for, but it kind of makes the game unplayable unless you have lights, you know, installed. So this is really cool though. Like, I'm not gonna lie, like this is so cool. Being able to like open it up like this and you get like this kind of shading. But yeah, this is really one of the drawbacks of the way that.
Yeah, so my factories
when we
are
just
going to be
slap
pitch black
lumen on,
inside, because if I go
without
inside
applying,
here,
like any kind of render technique on top of it, it's just gonna look like this.
The only light source is going to be coming in through the
So
conveyor
you
halls.
really need lights
And those
in your
lights.
factory, and that's just something I discovered when I was taking Bits' factory. It's like without lights, it just looks like this. So, but if I turn it on, it looks awesome, right? It's just, we have flashlight. So also the flashlight doesn't really do much. The flashlight doesn't have that much like output. I was gonna demonstrate that in this video, but unfortunately the flashlight doesn't work in the current version. But one really cool thing though with Lumen that I kind of want to explain before I show this part is that Lumen takes everything and treats it as a light source, which is not typically how lights work in games. So there's something called an emissive texture or emissive materials rather, where what you usually do if you have like a current version. But one really cool thing though with Lumen that I kind of want to explain before I show this part is
Oh, it's in the middle of it, so never mind.
is that Lumen takes everything and treats it as a light source, which is not
Just check
typically
what
how
parts
lights
do we
work in
need.
games. So there's something called an emissive texture or emissive materials rather, where what you usually do if you have like a computer monitor in a game, you usually apply a emissive texture on like the screen because it's lighting up by itself. But emissive textures do not light up the environment. This is an example. For example, the lights on some of the factory buildings are emissive textures. They don't emit any light, so they don't actually affect the environment when you place them around the world. But in Lumen, emissive. So usually, what you have to do is, if you do that thing and you want to have like an emitted light, you have to put like the computer monitor, put an emissive material on the screen, and then you put a light source where you want the light to be emitted in the game. So you actually have to, it's kind of weird, you have to cheat a little bit. So like you put the light source, you put an emissive texture, which is essentially just when you're shading the game on the GPU, it sees like, oh, this is an emissive texture. I should then ignore the general lighting coming from other light sources and just like render this as it is. So it's like emissive textures aren't really, or emissive materials aren't really rendered in the same way as other stuff is, and that's why you can get that effect where it lights up. Even if you have, like, even the lights in our game, they do that, right? So when you're looking at a light in our game, there's an emissive material, which is the light source, or like the light that you're looking at, which is purely white or whatever color you're shading it with. And then we also have a light source, like, that is next to it, which emits the light or whatever. The cool thing with Lumen is that Lumen treats emissive materials as light sources. So let me jump back to the part of the video here. Where was it? So the signs we have in our game, they are all emissive materials, and in Lumen they actually emit light, which gives you off this like cool effect. Now granted, you can't really light like properly because it's only rendering like the stuff around it. It's not bouncing the light from, you know, the source onto like the wall behind it or stuff like that. It's just the surface around it, but it looks really cool. And then if you go full on stupid mode, you could try and light the entire scene with just signs, and then it would look like this. And this is so dope. This is incredibly cool. And this was like one of the first things I did when I was goofing around in Real Engine 5. Was like the first thing I did was just like slap an emissive material on a ball and just put it in the scene and be like, oh my god, it actually lights up the shit. So that's really cool. And that's sort of, if you watch the footage of Bits Factory, click over here, you can see like Bits put down signs at the bottom here, and they kind of like emit a little bit of light on the ground. You can see it here. They also add like a little bloom and stuff like that, but they are affecting the scene more so than what they would have Wait.
Well, I think this one's
Yeah, they affect
going
the
to
scene
be
essentially. Is what I'm trying to say.
the aluminum casing, because the aluminum casing's going to come along.
But we won't be supporting Lumen like fully officially. So like, will we ever make it so that it doesn't go a completely horror game like this? I don't know, honestly. That's the thing, right? This is going to be an optional thing. This is not where we're going to put effort into it, because you really need to sort of light your game with Lumen in mind if you're going to use Lumen. And since we're not doing that, you know, you can on your own. But you will be able to have the option to turn it on if you want to. It's going to be like one of the... Yeah, they the scene more so than what they would have wait. Yeah, they affect the scene essentially. Is what I'm trying to say. But we won't be supporting Lumen like fully officially. So like, will we ever make it so that it doesn't go a completely horror game like this? I don't know, honestly. That's the thing, right? This is going to be an optional thing. This is not where we're going to put effort into it, because they affect the scene essentially. Is what I'm trying to say. But we won't be supporting Lumen essentially. Is what I'm trying to say. But we won't be supporting Lumen like fully officially. So like, will we ever make it so that it doesn't go a completely horror game like this? I don't know, honestly. That's the thing, right? This is going to be an optional thing. This is not where we're going to put effort into it, because you really need to sort of light your game with Lumen in mind if you're going to use Lumen. And since we're not doing that, you know, you can on your own. But you will be able to have the option to turn it on if you want to. It's going to be like one of those optional things. Maybe you'll just do it for when you're grabbing the screenshots or whatever. And when you're playing the game, you just play it off. The game does run a lot better without Lumen. I mean, yeah. So Lumen is not more GPU intensive because Lumen runs mostly on the CPU. It's a software-based ray tracing technique, or a collection of software rendering techniques. So even if you have a monster of a GPU, it still wouldn't make it any better, unfortunately. One more thing that I kind of wanted to talk about before we leave Lumen and Nanite is that, or maybe this is a miscellaneous thing. Maybe, we'll get to that later, actually. Never mind. So another thing Jay's talked about in the video is virtual shadow maps, which is just TLDR. It's like a way to make shadows more detailed, look better, and it's more efficient. And you can have higher resolution on shadows. Still wouldn't make it any better, unfortunately. One more thing that I kind of wanted to talk about before we leave Lumen and Nanite is that, or maybe this is a miscellaneous thing. Maybe, we'll get to that later, actually. So another thing Jay's talked about in the video is virtual shadow maps, which is just TLDR. It's like a way to make shadows more detailed, look better, and it's more efficient. And you can have higher resolution on shadows. But that only means something if you know how shadows are rendered with shadow maps. Because there's a bunch of different techniques how you can render shadows, and if you're using shadow maps, then there's a dependency of resolution, and virtual shadow maps makes it so that resolution is like more dynamic. But we're not using that. We probably won't use that, but we'll see. Cool. That was Lumen and Nanite. But we'll see. Cool. That was Lumen and Nanite.
Relaying message.
Dope.
Hello,
So let's
this is
move on.
Paternal Figure. I have taken
And we
ill
just
and need your help to
we
find
just
a
touched
cure.
on the first
Doctors
bullet
say
point
that the
for
only
hours.
remedy is alien artifacts.
There's a reason why that video was 40 minutes. Okay. How Lumen works with vehicle lights? Lumen will work the same way with vehicle lights as they will. Lumen works with vehicle. How Lumen works with vehicle lights? Lumen will work the same way with vehicle lights as they will with regular lights. So like this is the same deal. We actually do emit light the regular way with vehicles, but Lumen will take the emissive material part of the vehicles as well and do that stuff too. Like every light and every emissive material in the game will be treated the same way.
Comply.
When you use them. All right, let's talk about the world partitioning system. This is the biggest fucking thing. All right. Use them. Use them. When you use them. All right.
These segments lined up. That's
12, and I've just done an hour of streaming after being out of practice for it.
for a couple of weeks. So I think what I'll end up doing is get lunch. Let's get this range finished. I think it's read this. Yeah. Oh, that's the per bloody. I think the signage is wrong. I read the per unit, not the per minute. Right, so let's go get the signage updated. .5 modular frame per minute. .25 casing per minute. 37.5 watts it per minute. So, first one of these will have to be the Mark II bell. So we can have. Well, we could do the Mark II on top. That's going to make it easy to update. stackable pole out. That's offset now, probably. The reason why I should be going for the look. It's all belted properly. Yeah, missed one. Now we've got that nonsense again. How did we solve it this time? So that is more or less flush. That is that one. These are all. Oh. It's going to look a little bit wonky, but that's just due to a bug in how these built machines were put together. That just needs lowering just a couple of centimetres by the looks of it. So, next thing that needs doing is belting in the nitrogen gas and modular frames. I get more tip a little. Well, it's not going to tip unless I rotate it around that way, but it's going to tip volume wise. Always move it over a little bit. So the moments we were going to have is, I was planning on having nitrogen gas coming out from there. Then it would pop along, be all fine-ish. Problem we got is here. We've got these existing belts in the way because it wasn't planned ahead for nitrogen gas to be here. Now, in terms of belt cleanliness, I don't even think you can have modular frames come out of here. Oh, they would go up. You can see there that the belt is clipping through the adjacent one just because of, you know, position of everything. So I've got a possibility of bringing modular frames over here with a belt that turned out to be redundant. I think I was originally planning on bringing aluminium casing for the radio control units up along here. And then I just ended up not doing that. Shipping along here. Mark II belt parts. So this belt is unoccupied. That could carry the modular frames from over there. I don't have to lay out a new belt. But I've still got to get the actual thing around. Although saying that, the fact that that thing's down there means it could come out level with it. It's a bit rid of the sector. So the conveyor for go. Oh. We might still be able to make this shit work. Because we've got the casing going in, coming there. And then this is going to be the thingy thing. This is going to be the nitrogen canisters coming out.
Breaking news from Earth. Widespread chaos and mayhem. World President urges all citizens to do their part and harvest alien artifacts.
Oh yeah, that's nitrogen canisters going in. If we make that, we're going to fence.
Harvest.
That may or may not be lined up. No, that's not lined up. We need to scoot that over a little bit.
Your contract legally compels you to harvest this artifact. Harvest it.
Mix that up a little.
Breaking news from Earth. Widespread chaos and mayhem. World President urges all citizens to do their part and harvest alien artifacts.
Probably should have just kept the stream going for a bit, rather than having sat there in silence staring. Yeah, like this is what happens when my brain goes a bit off. Like it's like, oh, I'll just get this one more thing done, and then this one more thing, and then this one more thing. So that, like, this is all like shit that I'm doing semi on autopilot, which is one of the reasons why I started streaming in the first place, was to moderate the length of my gameplay sessions. Oh fuck. He fell. Can I get a power kill with it? Yeah.
Comply.
Haha, no. I'll leave this bit until after lunch.
Nothing in part for free modular frame, even though the manifolds of missing parts won't have been done. Like I mentioned, it's lunchtime-ish, so I am gonna call it here. I'll be back sometime after lunch. That's all for now. Goodbye.